Salve, salve, galera ligada aqui na Motorsport TV Brasil. Estamos em Interlagos, cobertura das 6 horas de São Paulo e, claro, acompanhando tudo que acontece no automobilismo brasileiro e internacional. E agora a gente vai pegar um pouquinho o lado político do esporte motor. Esse ano a gente tem aí eleição da FIA vindo e vocês já estão vendo aqui comigo, meu convidado, Tim Mayer, um dos candidatos à presidência da FIA. Tim, thank you so much for joining us here today. You must be having a busy schedule here in Interlagos.
Thank you. Listen, I've come to Interlagos so many times, and it feels like second home for me. So it's nice to be able to be back here in Brazil and with all my friends.
So let's talk about this candidacy for the FIA presidency. First of all, what made you run for presidency? We have the election coming up in December.
Well, I've had a very lucky career in motorsport. 34 years. Managing championships, managing volunteers, managing parts of the FIA with as a steward, as a race director, as a member of so many commissions and committees that have done work in all forms of the sport, including sports car racing, as we're here at the World Endurance Championship, Formula One, rally cross, all kinds of areas. And, I was able to reflect at the end of last year on what it is that really excites me about the FIA. And it's that ability to serve. I've been very lucky. It's always been very good to me, motorsports. And the ability to give back to the sport and also to mobility is really an attractive option to me, is to be able to go for that. But I also talked to a lot of people and talked about, potential run for leadership. And do they think that I am the person that they want to see as leader of the FIA? And the answer came back yes. So once we decided that, we have formed an organization. We put together the candidacy, and as you know, we announced this last week.
Yes, and we can't be shy about this situation. You had a direct relationship with the current president, Mohammed Sulayem. He's going for the re-election, and you were actually taken out of the FIA last year with an involvement. Many people question, is this somewhat of a payback to Sulayem?
When this happened in November of last year, for certain I was angry. I was very disappointed after 15 years to be fired by a text message. But it's very hard to fire a volunteer. I put my time in over 100 days a year at least, every year for the last 15 years for the FIA. And I've seen what good the FIA can do. And so when I got back home and I thought about this and thought about what we can do going forward, to me, this wasn't about a situation with Mohammed. It's about an opportunity to really help the member clubs of the FIA grow and thrive, whether it be a sport club like the CBA here in Brazil, or a mobility club. Mobility is the area of the FIA that deals with the normal road user, so safety and dignity and opportunity and access for people, like access for people in the Amazon, for instance, to be able to gain access to safe roads. This is the work of the FIA that really excites me, that gets me up in the morning and says, we can do it better. We can work together with these ASNs and the ACNs and the mobility clubs, and we can grow the sport. We can grow the access for the road user. It really excites me to be able to come to a championship like the World Endurance Championship and say, we can be a good partner.
Yes.
And for me, it's about making the FIA a respected, honest, honored place that everybody can be proud to be a part of.
Tim, you already said some words about how would you go as the FIA president, but there is one interview that you did recently that went around the world when you called Sulayem's time at the FIA is a reign of terror.
Yep.
I would like you to talk about it and say how would you go differently from what he's doing right now.
But listen, let me first of all explain that. That's a very big statement to me, and I stand by it. If you look at the people that he's attracted some really good people into the FIA. And then when they started to challenge him or to express different ideas, he's pushed them out. This is not the way to manage professional federation. You need to be inclusive. You need to listen to and respect other people's ideas. So for me, it's about listening.
Yes.
Listening as a leader is an incredibly valuable tool. It's where you get your best ideas from. I do not have the monopoly on good ideas. Good ideas come from the bottom up. It comes from all different directions. It comes from women and minorities and people from around the world. It comes from the small sport clubs in places that don't even have a cart track yet.
Yes.
This is where the good ideas come from. And, for me, it's about listening. It's about getting those ideas together, providing a vision, and then allowing people to execute their jobs.
Yes.
To really get in there and do the work, and encouraging them and nurturing them and being a mentor to them. That's what good leadership is about. And that's unfortunately what we're lacking at the moment.
Tim, talking about Formula One, which is the biggest product that we have within the FIA, the election is going to be the eve of one of the biggest regulation changes of the history of the World Championship. We have new cars, new powertrains, and at the same time, we don't have the best relationship between Liberty Media and the FIA. We have currently Sulayem pushing for the return of V8 and for the entry of a 12 team on the grid. How would you tackle the relationship between FIA and Liberty Media? Because there are some challenges within this.
Yeah. I don't think it's just a matter of between the FIA and Liberty Media.
Yes.
It's a matter of respect for all the stakeholders in Formula One or any of the championships for that matter. It's a matter of listening to and treating the drivers with respect.
Yes.
Not like children. That's just not right. These people are doing something that is incredibly difficult to do. It's about listening to the teams and treating them with respect. It's about listening to the investors and the sponsors and treating them with respect. It's about listening to the promoter, Liberty Media in this case, and treating them with respect. It's about getting everybody into the room, having a dialogue and talking about what should the future be. And I'm not talking about the future 2026 or the future 2029. We should be looking 10, 15 years into the future and charting a pathway for the future of the sport. So, to me, there's a definite lack of leadership here. To walk in, 1 month and say, okay, we should have V10 engines in 2026. And then walk in the next month and say we should have V8 engines in 2029. Maybe these are good ideas, maybe not, but they should be discussed amongst the teams and the manufacturers and all the stakeholders in Formula One, and come up with a long-term plan before we start throwing stuff around in the media.
Tim, just to wrap up our conversation here, we are currently in Brazil, Interlagos, and South America, which has an importance within the FIA with a vice presidency of its own. Brazil being a country that has 3 FIA World Championships happening here annually. Talking about the World Endurance Championship, Formula One, Formula E. What are your plans, not only for Brazil, but South America as a whole continent?
Well, Brazil is really a second home for me. It's my first job in racing was working for Emerson Fittipaldi back in 1990, 91, 92. I've been here and I've built racetracks here in Rio de Janeiro. I've been involved in all kinds of areas of the sport here in Brazil. Brazil has an incredible foundation, but it needs reinvigoration. It needs us to invest not just in the top of the sport, but also in the bottom of the sport. We need to help the CBA. We need to provide resources to the CBA. We need to provide training to the CBA and help them develop this sport. That's true across the continent. It's true across South America. There are all kinds of countries that have a real deficit in help from the FIA in terms of developing their motorsport from the ground up. And, when I talk about the ground up, I'm not talking about $1 million karting programs. I'm talking about we need to provide inexpensive, accessible karting. We need to provide inexpensive, accessible autocross and cross car and rallycross and so on. We need to work on these ground floor programs that people can afford so that we can build the motorsport in these countries. And that's my commitment.
Guys, I said it was going to be the last question, but I think the guys at home could hear me. You said that you worked with Emerson.
Yes.
It was in IndyCar?
he was an IndyCar. At the time, I had known Emerson since I was a child. He worked for McLaren in 1974. My father at the time was the owner of McLaren, so we were very lucky to know Emerson at the time. My first job was working in his office in Miami. Very quickly I worked with Bandeirantes and SBT and producing the IndyCar television show here in Brazil. So I have a lot of friends here in Brazil, and I really love coming back here every year.
It's nice to know, and good luck in the campaign. We'll see the outcome in December.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Esse foi o Tim Mayer, que está concorrendo à presidência da FIA contra o Mohammed Ben Sulayem, atual presidente da federação, que está aí buscando a reeleição. E, primeiro ponto, chega de piada com o nome do cara, eu não aguento mais ouvir piada com Tim Mayer e Tim Mayer. Chega, por favor. Mas, para a gente terminar aqui num tom um pouco mais sério, como eu mencionei, o Mohammed Ben Sulayem, atual presidente da FIA, está concorrendo à eleição agora esse ano, e a própria FIA mandou um texto falando sobre o processo eleitoral que vai ocorrer agora no segundo semestre. A eleição presidencial da FIA é um processo estruturado e democrático visando garantir justiça, transparência e integridade em todos os seus estágios. Ele é conduzido de acordo com os estatutos da FIA. A lista de presidenciáveis, que inclui o atual presidente, é eleita pelos clubes membros da FIA com totais direitos a voto, representando os pilares desportivos e de mobilidade da organização. Em linha com o compromisso da FIA com imparcialidade e para preservar o tratamento igualitário dos candidatos, aos membros é requerida uma neutralidade rígida durante todo o processo. A federação seguirá operando normalmente, cumprindo com suas responsabilidades aos membros em todas as áreas do automobilismo e da mobilidade. A eleição deste ano será realizada durante a Assembleia Geral da FIA em 12 de dezembro. E claro, até lá, o motorsport.com vai estar acompanhando tudo, trazendo novidades, acompanhando aí as campanhas de Mohammed Ben Sulayem e de Tim Mayer. E na Assembleia Geral do fim do ano vamos também acompanhar quem será eleito presidente da FIA. Teremos continuidade da gestão ou teremos aí a oposição vencendo? É isso aí, galera. Muito obrigado, valeu e até a próxima.